Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I am delighted to welcome you to this presentation on global regulatory harmonization. My name is Dr. S.K. Singh, and I hold a PhD in this field. Today, we will explore the expansion of regulatory frameworks through ICH and WHO initiatives. We'll briefly cover how these efforts are shaping a more unified approach to global health standards. So, let's get started and see how these collaborations are transforming the landscape of regulatory science. Welcome to our discussion on regulatory harmonization. So, what exactly is that? Essentially, it's about aligning regulatory requirements across different regions, making the process for drug development and approval more consistent worldwide. This effort is largely driven by the globalization of pharmaceutical research and development, which means companies are operating across multiple countries more than ever before. Harmonization aims to address the variability we see in several key areas. First, clinical data requirements can differ from one region to another, which can complicate the approval process. Then, there are quality standards. What's acceptable in one country might not be in another. And safety evaluation methods can also vary, leading to inconsistencies. The big benefit of achieving this harmonization: it significantly reduces duplication of efforts, cuts down costs, and shortens the time it takes to bring a drug to market. Essentially, it helps streamline the entire process, making it more efficient and ultimately benefiting patients worldwide. Let's talk about the need for global harmonization in the regulatory landscape. Currently, we have multiple regulatory agencies around the world, and each one has its own set of requirements. This divergence can create quite a few challenges. For example, companies often have to duplicate clinical trials to meet different standards, which not only takes more time but also drives up development costs significantly. Additionally, these differences can delay when patients gain access to new medicines, which is a critical concern. On the flip side, if we can work towards harmonized standards, the benefits are substantial. We could see faster approval processes, reducing the time it takes for medicines to reach the market. It would also cut down on duplicated animal and human testing, which is better for ethical reasons and resource management. Most importantly, global harmonization would improve access to medicines worldwide, ensuring patients everywhere can benefit from innovative treatments more quickly. This aligns with our overall goal of making healthcare more efficient and equitable across the globe. Let's start by looking at the different stakeholders involved in this process. On one side, we have regulators like the FDA, EMA, and PMDA, who are responsible for ensuring that medications meet safety and efficacy standards in their regions. On the other side, we have industry organizations such as PHRMA and EFPIA, which represent pharmaceutical companies and advocate for their interests. Now, an important organization to understand here is the ICH, or the International Council for Harmonization. It was established back in 1990 with the goal of bringing together these different stakeholders to create common standards for pharmaceuticals worldwide. In 2015, the ICH underwent a significant reform to expand its global reach, ensuring that these standards are applicable across more regions. The founding regions of the ICH are the US, the European Union, and Japan, which are major players in the pharmaceutical industry. The core mission of the ICH is to harmonize technical requirements for drug development and registration, which helps to ensure that medicines are of consistent quality, safety, and efficacy across the globe. This harmonization ultimately benefits patients everywhere by making sure they have access to safe and effective medicines. Moving on to the structure and governance of the ICH, the organization is built around a few key components. The Assembly is the main governing body, and it's responsible for adopting guidelines that influence international regulatory practices. The Management Committee oversees the organization's activities and strategic direction. Then, there are the Expert Working Groups, or EWGs, which are tasked with drafting the actual guidelines. These groups bring together experts from different regions and backgrounds to develop consensus standards that can be adopted worldwide. This structure ensures that the ICH operates collaboratively, efficiently, and transparently, aligning with its overall goal of global harmonization in pharmaceutical regulation. Let's walk through the ICH guideline development process. It involves a clear, structured 5-step process. First, we start with consensus building, which involves forming an expert working group, or EWG, to discuss and develop the guidelines. Next, a draft guideline is created, laying out the proposed standards. Then, we move to public consultation, where feedback from various stakeholders is gathered to ensure the guidelines are practical and comprehensive. After that, the final adoption occurs, where the guidelines are officially approved. The last step is implementation by regulators, who incorporate these guidelines into their regulatory frameworks. It's important to note that these guidelines are not legally binding until they are adopted locally by each regulatory authority. Now, regarding the categories of ICH guidelines, they are organized under the QSEM framework, which stands for quality, safety, efficacy, and multidisciplinary. Under quality, we have aspects like stability, covered in Q1, GMP standards in Q7, and quality by design, or QBD, in Q8 through Q11. For safety, toxicology and carcinogenicity are key areas. When it comes to efficacy, clinical trials and good clinical practice, particularly E6, are emphasized. And in the multidisciplinary category, we see guidelines like the Common Technical Document, or CTD, in M4, and terminology standards like MedDRA. One of the strengths of this framework is that it covers the entire product lifecycle, ensuring consistency and quality from development through post-market. This holistic approach helps streamline global regulatory processes and supports innovation while maintaining safety and efficacy. Let's take a closer look at some of the key ICH deliverables. First, the Common Technical Document, or CTD, which has become the standard format for regulatory submissions across regions. Building on that, the ECTD is the electronic submission version, making the entire process more efficient and accessible. Another critical area is the harmonization of clinical trial standards, which helps ensure consistency and quality across global studies. Alongside that, risk-based quality systems are increasingly emphasized to focus on areas of greatest impact and ensure patient safety. The overall impact of these deliverables is significant. They make single global dossier submissions possible, streamlining regulatory approval processes worldwide. Now, regarding recent ICH expansions and updates, we've seen membership grow to include new regions like China's NMPA, Brazil's ANVISA, and South Korea's MFDS. This expansion demonstrates a true move toward global collaboration. In terms of new focus areas, ICH is working on harmonizing regulations for generics, which is crucial for affordability and access. They're also advancing adaptive clinical trials under E20, which allows more flexible and efficient trial designs. Additionally, standardizing clinical protocols through M11 helps ensure consistency and quality across studies. All of these developments reflect a clear transition towards a truly global regulatory platform, making it easier for us to bring new medicines to patients around the world more efficiently and safely. Now, let's take a closer look at the role of the World Health Organization, or WHO, in regulatory harmonization. As a global public health authority, WHO plays a crucial part in supporting efforts to align regulatory standards across different countries. Their focus is especially strong on assisting low- and middle-income countries, or LMICs, to strengthen their regulatory systems. This support helps these nations build capacity, so they can effectively evaluate and oversee medical products. Another key aspect is promoting regulatory convergence, which means working towards harmonized standards that make it easier for countries to collaborate and share information. Importantly, WHO acts as a facilitator beyond the regions typically covered by the International Council for Harmonization, or ICH. This means that WHO helps bridge gaps and encourages cooperation on a global scale, ensuring that regulatory practices are more aligned worldwide. Overall, WHO's role is vital in creating a more consistent and efficient regulatory environment, which ultimately benefits global health by speeding up access to safe and effective medicines. Let's take a closer look at the WHO, ICH collaboration and its expansion efforts. As you can see, WHO is an observer in ICH, which means it actively participates in discussions and initiatives, helping to shape global standards. Importantly, WHO supports the inclusion of non-ICH countries, ensuring that regulatory practices become more inclusive and globally representative. WHO promotes several key strategies, such as regulatory reliance models and convergence strategies, which aim to harmonize and streamline regulatory processes across different regions. This not only reduces duplication, but also accelerates access to quality medicines worldwide. Furthermore, WHO encourages the adoption of ICH standards on a global scale, helping to raise the bar for safety, efficacy, and quality everywhere. When we look at WHO's regulatory tools and guidelines, the pre-qualification program stands out. It's a vital mechanism to assess and ensure the quality, safety, and efficacy of health products, especially in low and middle-income countries. WHO also provides guidelines on good manufacturing practices, or WHO GMP, which set the standards for manufacturing quality. These guidelines cover crucial areas like vaccines, biosimilars, and pharmacovigilance, monitoring the safety of medicines once they're in use. All of these efforts focus on three core pillars: improving access to medicines, making them more affordable, and ensuring they are safe for patients everywhere. This holistic approach is essential for advancing global health and ensuring everyone benefits from high-quality medical products. Let's look at some real-world examples of how harmonization has made a difference. First, consider the CTD implementation. Before harmonization, companies had to prepare separate dossiers for the US, the EU, and Japan, which was quite complex and time-consuming. After adopting the ICH guidelines, we now have a single, unified CTD format that covers modules 1 through 5, simplifying the process and promoting consistency across regions. Moving on to Good Clinical Practice, or GCP, which is governed by ICH E6. Standardizing clinical trial conduct globally ensures that trials are performed ethically and with scientific integrity, regardless of where they are happening. This not only protects participants, but also helps generate reliable data that can be accepted worldwide. These examples clearly illustrate how harmonization streamlines processes, reduces redundancies, and ultimately supports the goal of bringing safe and effective medicines to patients more efficiently. Looking ahead, there are several exciting directions that will shape the future of regulatory processes. One key development is the move towards digital regulatory submissions, especially with the adoption of eCTD version 4, which promises to streamline and standardize how we submit and review documentation. Additionally, real-world evidence is becoming increasingly important, and harmonizing this data across different regions can greatly enhance our understanding of product safety and effectiveness. Artificial intelligence also holds great potential in regulatory decision-making, helping to analyze vast amounts of data more efficiently and accurately. Moreover, global reliance and work-sharing models are gaining traction, enabling regulatory agencies to collaborate more closely, share resources, and reduce duplication of efforts. However, achieving true global harmonization isn't without its challenges. Regulatory sovereignty remains a significant concern, as countries want to maintain control over their own standards and decisions. Resource limitations in low- and middle-income countries also pose hurdles, making it difficult to implement and sustain harmonized systems. Furthermore, differences in legal frameworks, infrastructure, and implementation gaps across regions can slow down progress. These disparities highlight the importance of ongoing efforts to bridge gaps, foster collaboration, and adapt to the unique contexts of each country as we move toward a more harmonized global regulatory landscape. For further support, please feel free to contact us. We're here to help with any questions or additional information you might need. And with that, I want to sincerely thank you all for your time and attention today. It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you, and I look forward to connecting again soon.